Oh, there's a bigger one. Right. Greetings to you all. Julian's remark here, the idea is to have a conversation similar to one you would have around a dinner table with friends. By the time I finish, you'll think, she's got some pretty weird friends. Anyway, sex, gender, and neurons. Simply, sex is down there, gender is in here, and neurons make that up. My interest in the subject, I had to teach human biology many moons ago in England, and the children were fascinated by anomalies in reproduction, what made Siamese twins, whatever. And I came across, looking for stuff for them, a woman in Scotland who at the age of 40 found out why she didn't have any babies. She had no womb, but she did have testes inside. There was a Zulu warrior, and he was extremely worried. He started developing breasts at the age of 20, and it turned out he had ovaries and a womb. There was a place, Isla Margarita, off the coast of Venezuela, where a woman gave birth only to girls. But some of the girls, when they got to puberty, became boys. Now, how to understand all this fascinating material? Well, all I had, actually, was a moral, not a biological compass. I had inherited a construct that says humans, sex, binary. Female, male, the odd freaky, what do you call it? No, hermaphrodite. Homosexuals, yeah. That was all. It wasn't enough. So I went back to basics, i.e., what happens in the womb? Development of the fetus. Woman's seed, XX. Male seed, XY. They get together, two. A geometric progression that is mind-boggling. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. 9 months later, you have 10 trillion cells. Hugely complex process. The first 6 weeks, basic ducts, basic physiological material is being developed, but there are no sexual characteristics. At around week 6, it begins. XX chromosome kicks in, you're going to have a female, you get the female reproductive system getting placed. If it's XY chromosomes in that little fetus, that kicks in, and you get the development of male reproductive organs. You have sexual organ differentiation as early as that. But the brain is unaffected till the second half of pregnancy, when this is a brain. Basically, the template is female. If you've got XX chromosome, the brain just carries on merrily on its way developing. You're going to have a female. If you're going to have a male because it's got XY chromosomes, then there are parts of the brain that have to be altered, enhanced, changed, whatever. And that only happens if you've got a huge input of testosterone. That tiny fetus, it won't be matched again, the amount of testosterone, till you get to puberty in the male. Extraordinary. Female brain, male brain, that was news years ago, but I'm sure you realize that there's a lot of empirical evidence that's been collected to show that it's not just socialization, dress her in pink, dress him in blue. It's much more than that. We see the world differently because our brain is different, male to female. Even babies days old begin to show the differences, and they haven't been socialized. They're too small for that. Very simply, a couple of examples. Girl in the cot. Adult goes over, hello, sweetheart, whatever, whatever, whatever. The baby gurgles. Boy in a cot. Adult goes over. Boy will start to gurgle if you dangle a bunch of carrots in front of him. Why? The boy reacts more to color and objects, and the girl to sound. And this develops further. As they get older, the girls are more into communication, and the boys more into action and objects. Give them building blocks when they're old enough, and the girls will make low structures. Boys will go phallic on you and build towers. We are different. And these things can be measured. Talking about neurons in there. There is cultural reinforcement, of course, but we're talking about the origins of the difference being built into the brain. It's biological, it's neurological, and we're programmed to see and experience life differently. Now, if we go back to those 10 trillion cells, they don't just multiply, they adjust, they change, the structure varies to get you the liver, the kidneys, the eyes, the muscles, all that goes into you. 10 trillion cells, each with 100 trillion atoms. 7 billion people in the world. Hey, who's counting? I got these figures off the internet. You don't expect every woman to look like every other woman, every man to be like every other man. Things are going to happen that nobody plans for. Allow your mind to boggle. What do we find? Anomalies, variants, I'm not sure what to call them. Sorry. Spina bifida, blindness at birth, deafness, limb deformation, brain damage of different types. It happens. Chromosomes can go awry. One extra chromosome is all it takes, and you have Down syndrome. There's other syndromes that we don't hear about very much, and they're not registered early on. Men can be born, boys can be born with XY, or XYY. YY indeed, and XXYY. But, you know, you don't see a baby and say, recognize it, that's an XXYY child. You don't know. But these children, these boys, grow up and there are developmental delays. They have learning difficulties. As they grow older, they're taller than average, they've got less muscle mass, they suffer from anxiety, depression, more often than other males, and they are infertile. And of course there are also babies born daily who've got male and female genitalia. Where do they go? And on top of that, there's no way of testing if they've got a male or a female brain. Very sad case of somebody called John, who was converted to Joan because the penis seemed smaller than the vagina. So they cut the penis off, and he was brought up as Joan, and then it turned out he had a male brain. He committed suicide in this century. So, apart from that, you also get personality variants. I don't know what to call them. People who are autistic, bipolar, schizophrenic, have got Asperger's. That doesn't happen later. It's there from the beginning. And just as much as those that you cannot see to start with, generally, you've got gender variants. People who in here know that there is something slightly different. Take transgender. Now that is when a child is born with a full male genital system or female, but the brain is not congruent with it. So you can have a female brain in a male body, and that happens 1 in every 100,000 births roughly, or a male brain in a female body happens 1 in every 30,000, is not as common. Now, these people are obviously going to have gender issues. It's programmed in here. I mean, it's not as if you suddenly wake up one day and say, I think I'll become a homosexual, make my own life difficult if I can. Yeah, great. Then I can be a masochistic homosexual. It's not a career choice. It's in your hard wiring. Homosexuality used to be seen as a perversion, as a vice, as a sickness. In fact, 2010, I think France removed it from the mental health sickness list. How was it treated? Aversion therapy, electric shocks, lobotomies, transorbital lobotomies, hysterectomies, even castration. And Kinsey, of the famous Kinsey report, actually researched the people who had apparently been treated and cured. Some of them had gone underground, but they all admitted they still had their original sexual fantasies. They were just protecting themselves. Homosexuality, he said, is not reversible. This issue is now becoming something of interest to researchers, and you've got neurobiology, endocrinology, anatomy, genetics, it's all coming into play. And this multidisciplinary approach will doubtless yield results. It's still in its early stages, but it's already throwing up very important information and possibilities. We can't be like the man who saw the giraffe and said, "I don't believe it." His wife, by the way, was knitting a scarf for it. People who identify as transgender say, "I know what I am and it's not what's down there." Know by the age of 6. And Jan Morris, wonderful travel writer, said, "I was 3 or perhaps 4 years old when I realized that I had been born into the wrong body and should really be a girl." These are the people who go to endless troubles, pain, all sorts of difficulties to change their physical appearance to match what is in their head, to match their gender. Now, in America, the latest survey, and I don't trust statistics blindly, nor should you, I'm sure you don't, 3.5% of the population identified themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual. 3.5%, not much. Actually, it works out to 11 million in America. So why do we, you and I, know so little about this huge population? Because I think of 2 reasons. Discrimination and criminalization drives these things underground. And also, because you've driven it underground, you then make it invisible through lack of language. What we had was female XX chromosomes, vagina, male XY chromosomes, penis, everything else sick. These people are now coming out and saying, "I got this strange feeling about myself." And these people are coming out with an explosion of terminology. I'm sure I've been using a very basic vocabulary for it, but androphilia, gynophilia, androgenes, trans-queer, they have generated themselves because they feel it describes their situation. Gender dysphoria, you name it. What they're doing is depathologizing the vocabulary. They're getting away from saying, "This is a pathology, it's a sickness, we've got to treat it." They're saying, "Hey, I'm me, this is what I'm like." So, I started off with sex, visible down there. Gender, not visible in here, and it's not enough. And then I thought, okay, female, and you've got a continuum. The fragile lady to the head of state. Male, another huge continuum, from the aggressive butch character with tattoos on his eyelids to the man who's got a black belt in origami. And then you have, yeah, I like that one, you have the other, which goes from the unobtrusive homosexual who appears not to give any information about her or his homosexuality, to the bisexual, to the transgender. Then I thought, well, I'm still not happy with that. I'm saying A, B, C, whereas what we should be looking at is the human race and the variants within that. And they are so rich. Oh, blister. I'm sorry. I can't help this. India has recognized a third sex for centuries, the Hijra. Fascinating. I haven't got time to go into it. North America, the Indians, 130 tribes documented as having third and fourth gender, which they call the two-spirit individuals. I love that. The Samoan, I'm not going to get it right, but I love the name. Shush! Just got to finish. The Samoan call this the fa'afa'afine, third and fourth gender. The situation of people like this, dire, terrible discrimination. India has passed new legislation last year to help the Hijras, and it says the moral failure lies in society's unwillingness to contain or embrace different gender identities and expression. It's a mindset we have to change. So let us get gender tolerant and not forgive them for that. Thank you.